Good evening. Good evening. My name is Juliet Jones, and I'm with Universal Family Connection, and you are watching a live aid show, and our focus is on sexual health. And this is Ken TV. So I'd like to thank you for viewing in this evening for our show. We're going to have a very interesting show, but let's just get this out the way. I am with Universal's Family Connection. I am a health educator there, and I help facilitate an HIV support group. I also do HIV/AIDS education and HIV testing as well. And with our risk reduction department, we also have a licensed therapist. So if you are HIV positive and you are in need of individual counseling, we have a licensed therapist by the name of Marcia Cloutier. At Universal Family Connection, we have our support groups every Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I'm going to take you over to the PC so you can look at our website, Universal Family Connection. We're located 1350 West 103rd Street. So please go to our website for more information. We are a social service agency, so we have wraparound services for any and everyone. And our groups are every Friday, except this Friday. So, but other than that, please come to Universal Family Connection for HIV support groups or any other social support services. So I want to focus your attention to our topic today is Introduction to HIV for the Newly Diagnosed Patient. So what does that look like? Let's start from the very beginning. When you come to take an HIV test, you'll be screened for HIV infection. You'll be answering questions about your sexual health. So that is important. Me as a health educator, I'll ask you, when was the last time you had unprotected sex? And then if your answer comes back, 2 months ago I had unprotected sex, well then that is a time for you to think about taking an HIV test. So let's go through the motions. That the person now, they're sitting down and they took that HIV test, and now the test came back as it says diagnosed. So I have a guide for the newly diagnosed. But let's slow it down a bit and let's discuss the HIV basics. And even when you're HIV positive, you still have to know about an illness. You still have to learn about that illness. So it is important to talk to your doctor. It's important to talk to family and friends, as well as a health educator or medical case manager on what is HIV. So let's go to the basics. What is HIV? HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. Immunodeficiency means that the virus is in the immune system, and that means once that happens, the immune system is not working properly. And that also means that that person can easily become sick with other illnesses due to that HIV infection. And those other illnesses could be other sexually transmitted infections. So that is important to know, and it can easily get a cold, which can easily develop into the flu. Also pneumonia, that is another infection that can affect the immune system of someone HIV positive. And so also it's good to know about your CD4 count. And just keep in mind, you'll be followed along by your doctor, but not just your doctor, a healthcare team. And that can consist of the nurse, the medical case manager, a health educator, or a peer advocate, as well as a therapist can assist you as your healthcare team. So what are CD4 T-cells? So let's go into the immune system. Has many parts, including white blood cells. And one type of white blood cells is called a CD4 T-cell count. And that is how HIV enters those cells, those white cells. And then if you want to slow me down, feel free to say, hey, Juliet, you're going too fast, or I have a question. So you can feel free to call in at 312-738-1060. And if you have an input on the topic, or if off the topic, let's try to get back on the topic. Or if you want to discuss about yourself and and your needs, please give me a call if you have some insight on being HIV positive. Don't let the stigma and that fear keep you from helping someone else. So thank you for that. And so as we talk about the CD4 count, or they call it the T cells. T cells recognize viruses and bacteria, and it also helps fight infections in the body. So your T cells are very, very important to have those healthy T cells. Originally, when someone tests HIV positive, and it all varies from because we all individuals, so it varies. But the healthy immune system is based upon white cells of 500 to 1600 T cells. So let's start that HIV positive person off just for this particular show as having a healthy immune system of 1,000. And so now it's important for that person to be followed by a healthcare individual, a doctor. And so that doctor will do a series of tests to determine, not just that person is HIV positive, how healthy is their immune system. So those series of tests will look at the viral load, the amount of virus that's contained in the blood of someone HIV positive. So the doctor will order a viral load test, and also that CD4 T-cell count test that determines the amount of white cells that is in the immune system of someone HIV positive. And so that's why that's always important to know. So when you're newly diagnosed for HIV, you'll be followed by a doctor, and that doctor will determine by you coming in there on your first visit. Okay, let's start this way. They'll explain HIV infection as I stated to you. And then they also explain the two types of tests that they need to determine where you're at in your HIV infection. And those two tests, as I said, is the viral load test and the CD4 T-cell count test. Okay? And the goal of those tests, for the viral load, you want the viral load to be non-detected. And we can always explain fully as we go on to different series in the focus on sexual health. Or if you want more information on HIV, please visit Universal Family Connection, or you can call me at 773-881-1711. 773-881-1711. My extension is 1156, and I'll be more than happy to come out to explain the HIV impact and the viral load and the CD4 count and other components of being HIV infected. And so that CD4, and the goal is to have that CD4 T-cell count to stay as high. Remember, for this particular series, I said the patient has a CD4 white T-cell count of 1,000. So it's important for that count to stay at that number or decrease, to go up. And like I said, for that to happen, you must be followed by a doctor as well as on treatment for HIV. And as I go along with this series, we'll be talking about treatment for HIV positive individuals as well. Okay, so back to what is AIDS? People with healthy immune systems have CD4 T-cell counts between 500 and 1600. That is the number of cells in the millimeter of blood. Once your CD4 T-cell drops below 200 cells, then the doctor can determine by that CD4 count test that is an AIDS diagnosis, which is acquired immune deficiency syndrome. You can also be diagnosed with AIDS if your immune system it could be 1,000, but you have an opportunistic infection. It could be TB, hepatitis, pneumonia, can be considered AIDS-defined illnesses, as well as toxoplasmosis. So feel free to call in to slow me down or have an input on what it is being HIV positive, or do you know someone that's HIV positive. And so we're going to continue to walk you through the introduction for someone who's newly diagnosed as HIV. And so now they will have to get a referral to the doctor, and the doctor will discuss their options of starting medicine or not. Remember, it will be based upon those two tests that I just mentioned, the viral load test and the CD4 count. And so now that those test results came back, so we're going to walk it through that process, then the doctor and you will decide, will you be on HIV medicines? So you have that input. I want you to keep in mind, you're going to be followed by a healthcare team, and you're part of that team, being that newly diagnosed HIV positive individual. So you are part of that team. You determine if you want to start HIV medications. Now they have guidelines. The guidelines, it varies. It used to be 500 CD4 count. They wanted the patient to be starting HIV meds. Then it went down to, I remember, 250. Let the CD4 count drop to 250 before you want to start HIV medications. And so the guidelines vary from the CDC, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. So that's why I say you are that voice in your health care. You determine, along with your doctor, if you're ready. But ultimately, you are the one that says, okay, I'm ready to take my HIV medications. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and the importance of HIV medicine, it is an effective treatment that requires a combination of HIV medicine taken every day. So you have to be adherent to taking your medications every day. And it has to be every day at the same time. So if you start off at 9 a.m. in the morning, if you're on a one-day regimen, then you would have to continue that every day at 9 a.m. And if you feel that you cannot, well, then that's when you need to talk to your doctor and, and explain that. I know I started off taking it at 9 a.m. Well, now for whatever reasons, it varies. I have to shift to 12 o'clock p.m. It could be the difference between you work in the morning and you don't have time to take it, or you don't eat until 12 or something like that. So as I said, you determine that in your health care. You determine when and how you're going to take your medications. But the medication is important because it protects your immune system. It builds up your immune system. So as I said, for this talk that we're talking, the CD4 count was 100. Well, it helps build up your CD4 count and maintain it as well. So it helps build up the immune system, make the immune system much stronger, that you will not easily get a cold. And a cold can be prevented from turning to the flu or pneumonia by taking your medication every day. Taking your medicine every day reduces the risk of getting infections that can happen, as I said, with the opportunistic infections. And it reduces the risk of death. So that's important. And HIV medicines do not cure HIV or AIDS. And only a doctor have to diagnose someone as AIDS. I know they say, oh, it looked like they got AIDS. Only a doctor can, and it's determined by, someone call in and tell me what is it determined by. It's determined by the CD4 count of the white cells. Okay, so it's important, being newly diagnosed, to understand your lab tests. And they have, as I said, it's a healthcare team. It'd be a medical case manager, it may be a health educator or a peer advocate, which can walk you through, or your doctor could understand what is your lab test. So that's why it's important. And I can further explain the viral load test. It is a measure of how much HIV is in a person's blood that is infected. And the key goal of treatment with HIV medicine is to reduce that viral load. So that's why I said taking your medicine every day helps reduce the virus from, they call it multiplying into your white cells. So that's why it's important to have that viral load to see the amount of virus. And if you haven't heard, they said being virally suppressed is called having undetected viral load in your blood. So that's at a good stage to be undetected, to have that. Because also as we go along in this series of talking about HIV, you may hear me say having an undetected viral load will decrease your chance of transmitting the virus to someone. And so let's just keep that in mind. So having the lower viral load means that it's fewer copies of the virus that is developing in your immune system, because the virus destroys your CD4 count. So that's why taking that medicine helps prevent that from happening. And remember, it can also result in death to have lower CD4 counts. So let's just keep that in mind. Another test, as I stated, was the CD4 T-cell count. So just further explain, having a higher CD4 count is best, but that's not always achievable. As I stated, when the CD4 cells or the white cells drop to 200, and then that doctor can determine by that test that that is an AIDS diagnosis. But don't worry, for that newly diagnosed patient, they will be informed on, even though your white cells is 200, and that's an AIDS diagnosis on paper. But if you continue to take your medicine, or maybe this is the time the doctor can revisit what regimen should you be taking. So he may change your HIV medicines. And so when that happens, then you're on a different regimen, and then the doctor will still follow your viral load and CD4 count every 3 to 4 months. And so it can determine, oh, now your CD4 count has risen to 500. Oh, and now your viral load is going down to a non-detected or undetected status, which is great. See, that means that medication, that new medication, is working for the HIV positive individuals. And so now their CD4 count risen to 500. It can go to 700 as they take the medicine, and as the immune system's getting much healthier. They're living their best life at that point. And also, we already know exercise is always key for any illness. So it's not just about HIV. Eating healthy is always best. Eating healthy is always best. And exercising. And so as we go along, with that person that's newly HIV positive, like I said, you determine if you want to take medication. So at this point, if you say no, you're not ready for medication, keep in mind you're still being followed by a doctor. You still get your CD4 count test and your viral load test every 3 to 6 months, as determined by your doctor. The doctor will ask you questions like, how are you feeling physically? And your answers may vary. So inform your doctor if you're tired, if you're having nausea, or if you're having weight loss or sore throat. Those are signs, that your immune system is weakening. So keep in mind, this is the patient that's not on HIV medications. And so the doctor will still ask you, serious questions. How are you emotionally? Are you anxious? Are you depressed? Are you irritable? Are you having trouble sleeping? It could be other illnesses that's causing that, or even just having the diagnosis of being HIV positive is, could cause you mental distress. So that's important. And we all know stress can lower and weaken any immune system for any and everyone. So imagine someone newly diagnosed and they don't have the therapy or a HIV support group like Universal Family Connection can provide. So imagine that those things can lower those white cells, those CD4 count. Remember, as I said, the patient started off with 1,000. Just trying to deal with HIV on their own, that the CD4 count can drop to 500. It can drop to 500. And they can be developing symptoms. It could be swollen lymph nodes. It could be the cold turn into a flu. And so that's why the doctor will ask these series of questions just to determine, where you're at in your HIV diagnosis. So that's why it's important to be adherent to your doctor's appointment as well. And the doctor will ask you, are you taking any other prescription medications, or over-the-counter vitamins, or supplementals, the herbal supplementals, because some herbal medicines will interfere with your HIV medicine. So just keep that in mind. I remember St. John warts, that was said to interfere with HIV medication. So you have to tell your doctor, inform your doctor of all of that. And also, are you taking other medications? How about street drugs or illegal drugs like, well, we can't say marijuana because they could be illegal now or legal. So, but marijuana, cocaine, heroin, crystal meth, those can impede and destroy your immune system as well. So just keep that in mind, and be honest, because you have a healthcare team. So they're depending on you just like you're dependent on them, and to giving you the best care. And so as we move along, the doctor will do those tests to determine, if you said you had those symptoms. So that's why it's important to tell the doctor if you're on those medications. So if the doctor determined from those series of questions that now it's time for you to be on medication because your viral load went from, excuse me, because your CD4 count went from 1,000 to 500, and we're talking about perhaps in a 6-month span from being newly diagnosed. So then that doctor will determine by your CD4 count and your viral load, because by now the viral load has risen because of the other infections that may have developed. It could be another sexually transmitted infection. It could be chlamydia, gonorrhea, or syphilis. Because if you're having unprotected sex, then you are still at risk for those other sexually transmitted diseases. And so now we're going to look at the profile of someone. Now the doctor determined, and they determined that they want to be on HIV medicines. So it is a lot to weigh. It is. So that's why you still have to be followed by a doctor. And this is that important stage to have that team, that support. Because now you may be experiencing side effects, and the doctor will be asking you that from your HIV medications. He'll be asking you, do you feel tired? Are you having frequent diarrhea, trouble sleeping, trouble breathing? Do you have frequent headaches? And these could all be side effects from the medication. And the doctor will tell you about the importance of not skipping your HIV medications, because when you skip your HIV medication, that gives the virus time to multiply, to attack those white cells again. The virus knows, it just knows to go towards the white cells, and the virus knows when a person stops taking their HIV meds to start attacking those cells. It's like a magnet, so to speak. And maybe the next series I'll walk you through how that looks, how the white cells look when the virus is attacking it. So that's very interesting to see and to learn, so you know the importance of why a person should take their HIV medications. Okay, so the doctor will ask a series of questions, and he'll tell you the importance of not skipping or stopping on your own. You'll have to have that open, honest communication with your healthcare team, as well as your doctor, and inform them if you stop taking your medications, and then tell them the reason why. Those reasons will be called barriers. Those are called barriers. It could be, you're not dealing with your HIV and you're not ready to take medicine. And so therefore, you do need that support of a licensed therapist or a HIV support group. So those services are there for a reason, and they're there for you, being that person that's living with HIV, whether it's newly diagnosed or long-term living with HIV. There's constant support there. So it's important to keep that in mind. There are services there. The doctor will probably ask you, well, how are you taking your medicines? Are you taking it with food? Are you taking it as prescribed? Is it without food? Are you taking it every day? Remember, I said if you start off at 9 a.m., well, the doctor will like you to keep that regimen up at that same time. And that's the reason I want to fully explain, because even if you change the time on taking your medicine, the virus knows to attack those cells at that given time. Because when you start off taking it at 9 in the morning, here it is, the medicine is up here, the medicine level is up here, and as you're going throughout your day, you're working, you're loving, you're doing everything there is to do, and now there's nighttime come, and the virus is still there. Okay, so, but anyway, we can further discuss everything, but I want to thank you for joining in. I'm sorry, this is a short show, but my name is Juliet Jones. I'm with Universal Family Connection. I am a health educator there, and please call me at 773-881-1711. Extension is 1156. I would love to fully discuss how it is being newly diagnosed or long-term surviving with HIV. And I can also come out to groups to discuss HIV awareness and HIV testing and the importance of that. Universal Family Connection is a social service agency, and I will be here actually not next Wednesday, the last Wednesday of the month, to talk more about focus on sexual health. So as we go off the air for this section, I would like to thank you for viewing in.